All right. Looks like we are live on Facebook, on my Facebook page at JMatt MKE, talking about all things mental health for the month of May, as May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I've got Tiffany here. We connected a couple years ago when I started this 30-day Instagram story challenge around breaking the stigma for mental health. She chimed in on a couple things, and we just started chatting about mental health ever since. So welcome, Tiffany. How are you doing?
I'm good. Happy to be here and excited to do more things besides school and virtual therapy.
Yeah, true. Well, for now it kind of works out, but it's good that we have these variations. I heard yesterday you officially got your Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yep, it would have been my graduation, so it's pre-scheduled, postponed, but
Yeah.
still celebrated the day. So,
And that was over at Mount Mary, right?
yes.
How long did that program take you?
So if you go full time in my specific concentration, it's supposed to take 2 years, 9 months. So that's what it took me.
Oh, well, awesome. Right on time.
Yeah, it's actually a longer master's program. A lot of other ones typically go quicker. So
Okay.
I didn't realize that until I was like in line and I was like, oh cool.
I'm already
The
halfway
longest
done.
one.
Might as well finish it out.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let's see. How about you give a little background of yourself? We know the masters you just got, kind of a little background of what you've been doing and what you're looking forward to doing now that you have this masters.
So I started the program, yeah, like the 2 years, 9 months ago. I did my undergrad at UWM, so I've always been like Milwaukee native. And the last year of the program, you're required to intern. So I did my internship at another local private practice. And they have offered me a job now. So I will be working for them, which I'm really excited about. It's funny enough, one time when I was picking my sites to interview with, and I went up to the supervisor and I said, do any of these sites have dogs at them? Because I love animal assisted therapy. And she was like, just one. And so I reached out to them and it was a pretty good fit. And I was like, and there's dogs. So
Yeah.
that's a goal of mine down the road, is to have a dog that I can integrate into therapy. So I'm really excited to be there with them. Also, I'm a big person with small local businesses. So also being a part of something like that, I value a lot. So that is kind of my future. Referrals there aren't as high right now. You know, people are kind of unsure, and getting started virtually, I think, is a little intimidating to some people. So
Yeah.
we've gotten some. It's not like they've stopped, but it's just been a little slower. So I'm kind of just waiting for that to pick back up. The way things work for us there is, you know, the people who've been there the longest, they get the referrals first. So I'm at the bottom of the food chain, being a fresh little baby graduate. So
Yes.
it'll take me a little longer to build up, but that's pretty normal for this field. So that's kind of where I'm heading, and I'm just gonna see how long it takes me to kind of get to where I want to be. But I'm pretty confident it'll get there.
Very cool. Sabrina, by the way, hopped in to say congratulations to you. So
Thank you, Sabrina.
So today's episode, we're going to be talking about therapy. And for those that are not familiar, in the sense that they've never done therapy, what that could look like. And for those that have done it, a little bit more information on it and finding the right therapist. So I think generally when people are looking for therapists, there's a couple options that pop up, such as like a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I thought that would be a great spot to start as to what the difference between the two are.
Yeah, so I think the two main differences between those is the type of degree that they have and the services that they offer. So a psychiatrist will have usually like a doctorate of medicine, like they'll go to medical school. A psychologist will typically have their PhD, so they are also a doctorate, but they don't prescribe you medication. Psychiatrists prescribe medication with their medical degree. Psychologists have a doctorate and they don't prescribe medication. And then there's master's level clinicians, which can be a couple of different titles. And we provide pretty much the same services as psychologists. It's just a varying degree level, experience level. And I think with PhDs, sometimes they just have more of like a focus on something, or they, did more like hardcore research into certain things. So I would say when you look for a psychiatrist. They don't provide as much of the like talking part. So they're more about the medication. A lot of times having a psychiatrist will pair up nicely with a psychologist or a counselor therapist. And I've heard a lot of feedback that getting into psychiatrists can take longer or be harder to access. There's not as many psychiatrists in like, areas as there are counselors, therapists, and psychologists. So there's not as many of them to go around. So, and then, insurance plays into all that too. So
right.
It depends on what you're looking for is kind of the key. Like if someone calls where I am going to be working and they say, I need medication, like whether they've been on it before and they just need somebody new to prescribe it, or they haven't tried it but think that's going to be what they need to do, I usually tell them, that's not a service that we provide. We can help you like find a person that can prescribe medications for you, but we can, get started here with just, meeting face to face without that component and help you move forward if you want. And some people are like, no, that's okay. And some people are like, yeah, that's cool. I'm going to get started here. And then you can help me evaluate if I want to, seek that psychiatrist out.
Yeah, from experience, I'm someone that does go to therapy, and I've been doing it for quite a while. When I did see a psychiatrist, I don't currently see one now. I found it to be easier to see that counselor, the therapist who had all those connections and was like, hey, I think it might be time for you to talk to a psychiatrist if you'd like to entertain taking medication, and was able to set me up with an appointment so much faster than I tried to do it on my own. So yeah. I think, in my opinion, if someone is interested in getting a psychiatrist down the road, go the route of finding a psychologist that can refer you to a colleague of theirs. Yeah,
I think I agree with that sentiment. Just that, if you're just reaching out and you don't have a referral from anyone else, they might, your name's not going to stick out. They might not, I don't know any personally psychiatrists, so I don't want to speak for them or what they do or how they function. But
I understand.
That's how it seems to me, that if you start kind of at a lower level, you can have an easier time working your way up.
You mentioned referrals. I'm curious, how do most people find you or a specific therapist? Is it truly through their healthcare provider and who's taking on new clients, or do clients that really enjoy their therapist end up referring and say, oh yeah, you should try my therapist, she's great? Because I know it's all confidential. Yeah. So theoretically you could just know that my friend referred me to a great therapist, but not share information, obviously. I don't know, is that a common thing or not?
I definitely think there are some people who are like, I had a great experience here, you can check it out. Perhaps they like their therapist and they know that there's other providers that their personal therapist works with. Like where I'm going to be working, there's 6 of us. I can never count. And so like maybe somebody sees one person and they're like, yeah, I really love my therapist. They have 5 other colleagues that are accepting clients. You should see one of them. So that can sometimes happen or work. I'd say a lot of people get referred to us because we have some like clients who are either, mandated or they're involved in like county statewide programs that, think that, oh, this person would benefit from therapy based on what they're doing. So they will give them our information. Sometimes they'll call on their behalf. Sometimes they will give the client our information and say, here's a place to reach out to if you'd like to set up therapy appointments. We can be found with Google searching, therapists in my area or clinics. And a lot of people do use Psychology Today. So I think every therapist, not every therapist, but I would say half or a little more at where I work is on Psychology Today and can be found on there. And that's a great resource if you're looking for something specific to be like treated for. Like you can see what people's specialties are. You can see what insurances they take. Psychology Today does say if they are taking new clients or not. And also right now it says if they're offering telehealth. So that's pretty helpful right now. And then, insurance companies too. I've had people call and be like, yeah, my insurance company recommended me to call you guys. So it can come from a variety of directions. I think it kind of can vary on the type of setting. So like Yeah, there's
Here's Psychology Today. I thought I'd just bring it up.
yeah.
It
So
brought up this Erica Balmer person automatically. It's not I'm endorsing Erica, not anything for her or against her, but this is what the website looks like when you land on it from the website, from Google.
yeah, so the profiles say a lot of really helpful information. Actually, in one of my last classes before I graduated, one of our assignments was to kind of just look over this website and look maybe in our area, get a feel for what people's profiles looked like, what they said, talk about our own specialties. And I found it like, I was like, this is a really helpful assignment because I've never really dug this deep into this website before, but I definitely think it's a great resource to find providers in your area and then know more about what they offer.
The interesting thing is I've actually never used this website before, and like I have like a health insurance card that'll have a website on it. You go there and you find a therapist that way, or a physician, or whoever you want to see. But gosh, I wish I had known this existed sooner.
Yeah, I've actually seen a therapist myself too, and I found mine through my insurance website. So I knew this existed, but I just like kind of thought it wasn't as helpful as it was. I was just like, oh, they won't break it up so cleanly. Like, right. Whereas on my insurance, I knew they would accept it, but I actually think I prefer this over my insurance's website now after spending time on it.
Okay. So if somebody hasn't done therapy before, what might it look like? What could a session of therapy be like?
So I will start with the disclaimer that everyone kind of they can do their own thing, practice to practice, location to location. But from my experience and kind of what I've learned about in school, the first session is probably going to be a little awkward. Usually people call or email to get set up and give a little brief information about why they want services. Sometimes they'll ask for a specific person. Sometimes they'll get assigned to somebody. And then when you have your first session, there's paperwork. So you have to sign some consent forms. There's, discussion of insurance, copays, anything like that. And then just any other documents that a clinic will require for their own personal documentation. And usually that first session is just really getting to know each other, getting that background information. So it's required to have an assessment for a client. So an assessment is just kind of getting that background information, assessing someone's like current status, mental health. So that gets completed during and after the session. And then it is actually required to bill for insurance to have a diagnosis. So after that first session, there will be a diagnosis provided, which some people are like, oh my gosh, you just met me. Like, how can you diagnose me right away? And
right.
We always explain, diagnoses are like a work in progress. They're always subject to change. We get that we just met, and there's going to be, new things that we learn and kind of attack as we go. So it can change, but it is required to bill for the services. So that'll happen. And then usually too, like at the end, just be like, is there anything I missed? Is there anything else you want me to know? Talk about how often people want to come in. Some people want to come in twice a week to get started, because those first couple sessions are really getting to know each other and kind of getting a good understanding and building that therapeutic relationship. So I don't know. Do you have any other?
The interesting thing that I have found about therapy, which makes sense the more I think about it, but every therapist I've ever seen, towards the end of that first session, they're like, okay, what are your goals and how will you know if therapy is working? And I'm always kind of surprised by that, because it's like, well, obviously you should be working towards something, but like I literally came to the therapist with no idea of what my goals and what will it look like. So kudos to anyone that gets that question, is like, well, I know my goals are this and this is how I'll know if it works. But the therapist does help basically hold your hand and say, okay, here's an example of what this could look like, or what does it look like to you when you are mentally healthy around this topic. So
yeah, we do also are required to have a treatment plan. So that also comes after that first meeting, and that will typically be it can be worked on. It depends on who you are. Everybody has their own kind of process. So some
Yep.
therapists will choose to like work on it in session with the client, like the whole thing. Some people will do it outside of the session. And then you have goals and you have, ways that you're going to address those goals. And then you have to, revise that every couple months. There's different requirements that when those have to be updated. But yeah, it's nice to work with the client on those, because if you just like write everything down for them, you want to work together. You're not there. Therapists are not there to do all the work. Like, we're there to help you get to where you want to be. So we want to know, where do you want to be? How do you want to get there? What's an actual realistic way that you can get there? Because if you're feeling depressed and you want to feel better, I can tell you some things to try.
Right.
But if you hate writing in a journal, that's a terrible goal, because you're not going to journal and it's not going to get us anywhere. So the goals are huge. They are weird. So I even felt weird writing them at first. I was like, I don't know, like, how do I write this goal? Because there's requirements of how the goals have to be written.
Right.
And so I really talked with my supervisor a lot about those and other colleagues, because once you start writing them more often, you kind of get a feel for like how to like word them and also how to explain them to people. So I feel like I've definitely grown in that department, and I can be of more assistance to clients when I'm like, what are your goals? And I'm like, here are some, ideas to get that ball rolling.
That's awesome. I know from experience that there's homework that you'll get between sessions, which the thing is, in my opinion, when you're working with a therapist, is just be transparent and honest. If a week goes by and they check in with you in the next session and they're like, so did you work on any of that? If you didn't, don't lie about it, because it doesn't really help you. And I've had a week go by where I'm like, yeah, I didn't really do anything on this list, but maybe I will next time. And then there's other sessions that I've had with other therapists where meditation was a new concept, and we literally just meditated for the entire session, and he just guided me through what I should be doing, which was just helpful for me to be able to do that in the future.
Yeah.
We've got some comments, by the way. A lot of people saying congratulations to you. Susan's here. Deanna's here. Looks like Deb Edge is here as well, checking in. So I wanted to give them a little bit of acknowledgement. If somebody is looking for a therapist, let's say it's a new therapist and they've done therapy before and they want a better experience, or they're brand new to therapy, what should they be looking for in the therapist of their choice?
So that's one cool thing about the Psychology Today website, is there's a lot of the providers on there will not only talk about what they specialize in, but also sometimes they talk a little bit about themselves too. Because I think it depends, like, person to person, what you value in a therapist is going to change. So, like, honestly, when I was looking for a therapist, I was like, I kind of just really wanted like a young female, because I'm a young female. And I was just like, I feel like I'm going to relate best. And sure, I could probably relate well to an older woman or a man, but I was just like, that's just what I'm feeling will be the most comfortable for me. So that's what I picked. But some people are like, I have this like passionate hobby and this person is also into that. So, maybe I want someone who's going to relate to me on that front, or, just, it depends person to person. But I think that being able to read those bios about people is kind of where someone who has no idea what they're looking for or what they want can really start to understand.
If you are somebody that has previously been diagnosed, that is helpful guidance. If you're finding a new therapist, you can specifically look for somebody that specializes in ADD or depression or whatever you need to work on. And then when you go with them, if they're accepting new clients, that you can get a running start. It's like, hey, cool, you know how to help me. Here's my problem. Let's go and work towards a solution. So there's those options as well.
Yep.
All right. So you talked to me on Instagram a while back about how if you're looking to find therapy right now during a pandemic, it's not easy for anyone, honestly, in my opinion. But if you want to go with an actual local clinic so that when the pandemic ends and we can start seeing people in person again, what does that look like to reach out to a location now, and how have they adapted to the virtual times of therapy?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak mostly about what I've experienced personally, but there can be variations to this. But so where I'm at, we went completely virtual. And the way that you would reach out to us when we were doing face-to-face is the same. You can email, you can call us, leave us a voicemail, you might get an answer. We've tried to be answering the phone as much as we can, but everyone's like at home with access to their phone, so it's a little harder to like transfer those calls right now. But the difference then is, so paperwork is required to be signed to get started, like consents for therapy. If someone's under the age of 18, we need parental consent. And so we're trying to mail those out at first, but that just wasn't really working. So we've switched to like an online documentation signing. It's a website for signing documents. So those are being sent through there now, so that clients are able to sign and consent to therapy to get started. So that's one change. And then we use a HIPAA compliant platform for our video chats. I think that's really important. There are temporary allowances for other platforms to be used in this time, because there is the understanding that not everyone has access to certain things, platforms, you name it. So there is some leniency during the pandemic that will eventually be revoked, but for the time being, it is acceptable. So you would meet virtually face-to-face or video chat, so technically face-to-face. But phone calls are also an option too if you don't have the technology. And that's pretty much working the same then from there on out. And then, as we talked about, those treatment plans, those goals. So those are things that have to be signed too. So those are also now being sent through the platform, which is, again, HIPAA compliant. Nobody's privacy is being breached in any way. We've taken those steps and precautions to make sure of that. So it really hasn't changed a crazy amount. It's
Right.
just the steps that are required to get started are just done in a little different way. And then, the video chat aspect of it.
Yeah. So one other thing that is huge during this pandemic, I am one of the people that has been affected in this way, loss of job. So with a loss of job means you lose your health benefits. And let's say you have a therapist or you're looking for therapy, because a lot of people are experiencing anxiety, depression that they may have never otherwise experienced, but now we're in such an unpredictable time that people might be seeking out therapy, but they don't have health insurance coverage. What's your recommendation to those that might be trying to seek therapy on a very small budget?
Yeah, so there's a couple different options. If you completely have lost your insurance benefits, there are, like you mentioned, you're doing the virtual websites that provide therapy. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of them are offering deals right now, which I think is great and kind of shows that they are caring and cognizant of what's going on right now. Some places offer sliding scale services. Some places, if you don't have insurance, just have set out-of-pocket prices, which can add up. But for example, my site that I'm at, we charge $75 for an assessment, and that's your first session, and then $60 after that, typically for an out-of-pocket session. So we try to be accessible. There are some places that provide low-income counseling, and I've tried to compile a list of those places, just for anyone I may encounter on social media or wherever that's I need help, where do I go? And I'm always a really big advocate of telling people to seek out places with interns, because during my internship, I had the ability to see people for free. I was working for free. That was why I was there. And other providers, they can't afford to do that. They rely on their income, and they have their bills to pay, and they're not there to work for free. Whereas I knew that's what I was doing from the get-go, so it wasn't going to hurt me. And a lot of other students that I was in classes with were doing the same thing. They were seeing people for free. So I know interns sound kind of scary, that maybe they're not as experienced, they don't have as much training. But the cool thing about us interns is that we have all of our students to fall back on, all of our peers. We have teachers at our school that we can consult with, and we also have a supervisor that we consult with. So we've got this whole team behind us. So anyone who sees an intern, they're seeing only their intern's face, but really they have a team of 4 experienced professional people in their corner. So I always try to make that known and understood, because like we have all these people around us that are holding us up if anything goes wrong. So
fantastic. I want to touch on group therapy a little bit. I know you're not as experienced with that topic, but I think a lot of people will think about, okay, I don't want to sit in a room with a therapist, talk one-on-one just about mine. Am I the only one that's experiencing this? What do you know about group therapy for people, and even support groups?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different group therapy options. It depends, like clinic to clinic, place to place, if they offer groups. And like you said, I'm not as knowledgeable in it as the place that I'm at does not offer them. We might offer them in the future. That's something we've kind of touched on. But like I know places like Rogers and like Aurora Behavioral Health offers a lot of groups. And the groups can be organized by age, or the groups can be organized by, what you're dealing with. So there's a lot of different group options. And people can be in individual therapy and group therapy simultaneously. I've seen that frequently. So that can be useful. And then for support groups, NAMI, I know, offers a lot of support groups. I watched your live with Riggs, and I learned from you guys that, the AFSP people are offering support groups, which I thought was awesome. So there's a lot of different support groups that can be found. I believe NAMIs have gone virtual for the time being, but they have a lot of different, like if you are someone with mental illness, if somebody in your family or a loved one is somebody that is like going through mental illness, like that kind of a thing. There's a lot out there. And even, like I say, I don't have as much experience in that field. Like I'm happy to have a client or a friend or family member and just go on the computer with you and look stuff up and be like, what's out there? Let's find something.
Yeah. You mentioned NAMI. And I know you're a volunteer there. Do you want to give us like a brief overview of what NAMI is and kind of what it looks like to be a volunteer and services they provide?
Yeah, so I started volunteering with NAMI. I went to their event about it last summer, and then I started getting involved after that. So it's been almost a year now. I actually went to a event that described their Ending the Silence program. And I went there for a school project. I was supposed to attend something else, and it just didn't fit in my schedule. And my teacher's like, just find something else to go to, and you can write a paper about that. I was like, cool. So I found this, and I was like, oh, like, I know I only have to come here for this paper, but like, I want to keep going. So the program is Ending the Silence, and it's typically for high schoolers and some middle schoolers in Waukesha County. So the NAMI Waukesha branch is fully functioning, which I don't think any of the other nearby ones are. Like the greater Milwaukee area branch is volunteer run and based. So that is why I've worked with the Waukesha location. And so I give these presentations to high schoolers and middle schoolers in Waukesha County. And it's like a PowerPoint that's been developed by NAMI. And it's about just kind of introducing high school and middle schoolers to mental health, and, that everyone has mental health. Not everyone has mental health issues, but everyone has mental health, and it's important to maintain your mental health just like you maintain your physical health. We do briefly touch on suicide because it's such a taboo thing, and, we're trying to, like Rick said, kind of get rid of that stigma around it specifically. And so yeah, we do that. There's two components to it. There's like the main presenter who kind of really goes over the presentation. And then afterwards there's the youth presenter, which I can do both, but I think I do the youth one more often, just being one of the younger people who volunteer. And that's just to tell like your own story and experiences. So while I am in the, in the field of mental health to come be a therapist, I do have my own experiences with mental health. And so I kind of just talk about what that all looked like for me and what I've experienced and how I've worked towards dealing with that. So it's really fun to be able to like connect with young people, because sometimes I feel really old, but sometimes I'm like, I really wasn't like in their shoes that long ago. So
right.
Being able to like do that for people just makes me feel good to hopefully like start things earlier. I don't want every kid to like get to college and take their first Psych 101 class and they're like, oh, like, okay, like we want this to start sooner.
Yeah. I do have a somewhat personal question for you, given that I'm sure your friends and family know what you went to school for and what your goal is and your ambition.
Mhm.
Have people started coming to you about more of their problems and helping to cope with whatever they're going on instead of seeking their own therapist?
I actually don't feel like that's happened too much.
Okay.
I've always kind of been, one of those people that people could talk to. Like, I've always been like, you can talk to me. I'm perfectly happy to listen to you. And I think that's a common theme around like therapists. Like, I was always the friend that people came to,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. I don't think my family or like my family or friends really comes to me like to be like counseled.
Right.
I think my grandma asked me the most questions, but she's just like wanting to learn more, which I love that she's into all of this stuff. She's like, like, okay, so what is, like anxiety or depression? Like, what do you do? Like,
Right.
what are you doing with these people? And so I feel like she asked me a lot just to understand what mental health and mental health care and all that stuff. But yeah, I feel like almost I more have to watch out to like therapize people. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm watching you do this. Oh, that's a really unhealthy like coping skill. Like, what could you replace that with? Like things like that. I feel like
Right.
that's more my
You don't want to
problem.
overstep.
Yeah.
So have you found yourself diagnosing friends and family like, oh, you clearly have this, but you can't say anything, or do you say something?
I don't think I really diagnose people. I guess there's times like if my parents or something, like I've talked to them about some stuff, and like one time my mom made a comment about something and I was
Mhm.
like, you're using this just like casually, but I was like, here's my DSM, which is the book that has all the different
Yeah.
diagnoses, and I was like, these are the requirements for this, so you don't have those, so you don't have that. And
Oh,
she
great.
was just like, oh, okay, cool. And
What a sigh of relief.
but yeah, so I don't really think I'm like going around diagnosing people. I do live like a lot of my life centered around like mental health, but I think when I'm not in those, like, I'm not giving NAMI presentations, I'm not in the office, like, I do try to turn it off, because I think if I lived in that mindset 24/7, I might go a little nuts. So
I hear you totally. I do have a question around the stereotypes, and maybe not so much stereotypes, but I know there's people that have tried therapy once, didn't work for them that one time, and they said never again. What would you say to those that have basically sworn off therapy for one reason or another?
yeah, I've heard that a fair amount. One of my best friends, like, we kind of had a few years like in high school where we didn't talk as much, and recently she told me about this therapy experience she had and how awful it was, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't know that happened to you. I'm so sorry. But I always tell people to try again, because like some people even make the joke that like therapy is like dating, you got to find the right person, and not every person vibes with every person. That's just human nature. If I have purple hair, somebody might hate colored hair and come to my office and be like, I can't be treated by someone with purple hair. That could happen.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where you have to find the right person for you. And it's okay if your first or second or third therapist isn't for you. But I do always recommend giving it a few sessions, because that first one, it's awkward. It can be. Some people are just like all in and open right away, but it's not human nature to just show up and meet somebody for the first time and tell them your life story. Like, that's natural. That's fine. So try to maybe come to like 2 or 3 sessions and really feel out the relationship, and a therapist will be understanding. Nobody's going to be mad if you decide, oh, I don't think we're the right fit. That's okay, because we don't want to force anybody. Like, we want you to get what you need out of therapy. And if the relationship isn't there, the therapeutic relationship, if it's not being built, then it's really not going to work. So it's better off for the client to find somebody that they do get along well with.
Perfect. For finding more resources for therapy, I know we've talked about NAMI and we've talked about local therapy locations. We barely hinted at like online resources. What kind of virtual therapy or like apps or whatever would you recommend, or have you heard of that people have been trying?
Yeah, so I've heard of, BetterHelp and Talkspace, which you said you're utilizing BetterHelp. My supervisor, where I interned and am now going to be working, he also does that. So he kind of gave us the rundown of how that's working and how he, feels about it, having been a face-to-face person for the last however many years he's been providing services. So
Yep.
It was really cool to learn about that. I'm definitely interested in it. But so that's kind of my knowledge of it, is what I've been told by people doing it themselves and by my supervisor. But it sounds like a pretty nice option for people who are limited. So there's like limitations with providing services to people like across state lines. So like typically if you're in Wisconsin, they will try to pair you up with somebody who has a license to be practicing in Wisconsin, because certain states have different like licensing requirements and stuff like that. So it's just simpler. So, but you might be paired with somebody who's in the very, northern point of Wisconsin, and you're down here. So it's kind of cool in that regard, that you might be able to interact with someone who is not, nearby, but they can still provide that to you. And then I know like some people can do just like texting or emails as kind of the therapeutic interaction. So I think that's cool that, because some people don't have as much like privacy or time to give to it. So those are options. I know in our NAMI presentations, we recommend, there's Hope Line, I think it's called, and it's 741-741. And that's free. And I think it's kind of what they refer to as like a warm line instead of a hot line. So it's actually the people who are serving that line are based in Wisconsin, I believe. So that's pretty cool. It's free for anyone to text. So that's another useful one. As far as that, you have the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. That's a common one.
I mostly tagged it because you mentioned the 741-741. I was like, "Ooh, I got a banner for that. It's included with this other thing." But yeah,
you can text actually. So I've seen a lot of different places advertise that, and it seems like there's a bunch of different words that you can send to get that conversation going. So I think you don't really have to say anything special. Just you text the number and you say something, and it seems like they'll get back to you. So I think that's a really nice one. There's apps and things too, which aren't like therapy, but just apps that have resources in there. There's, a lot of people know about Headspace as one. I don't know if that's the one that costs money or not, but there's a couple different ones. I definitely have a whole folder with the ones that are on our NAMI presentation that I just forgot that I had.
You've mentioned a lot of resources, honestly. A lot more than I expected, and I think you've been able to add a lot of help and resources already. I do know there is one, speaking of not technically therapy apps that are therapeutic, I use Calm, and that's just simply a meditation app. It's guided meditation. I don't think it's free necessarily, but if you plan to use it regularly or a couple times a month, like I do, I wish I was using it daily. I don't. It is worthwhile. It's guided meditation. It's calming music. I've found it to be helpful.
Yeah, that's one that I think is on one of our slides for the NAMI presentation too. I just forget how there's so many.
There's so many. Exactly. Just need that slide to pop up behind you.
Yes.
I do want to give you a chance to plug the shirt you are wearing and give a little bit of information. I'll pull it up right here.
Yeah, maybe tilt the camera a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, I designed these shirts with the help of Amanda, who you were interviewing on your #MKE one. She helped me come up with a cool design that wasn't super like obnoxious in your face, but was also about mental health. Just, between the NAMI presentations, going to school to be a counselor, and my personal experiences, I was just like, what can I do to give people a way to be a supporter of mental health? And I also, when I created these, like there's a blurb at the bottom that kind of talks about why I made them and who I am. And so I was like, I needed a little extra like money to finish paying for school. And I was like, how can I do that in a way that's like, I'm not just going to ask people for money. Like I want to provide something cool. And I also donate 10% of the proceeds to NAMI to help them give back to the community. Because I was like, I need to do this for myself, but like, how can I make it in a way that's, different and still helpful for the community? So I designed these. So this website kind of takes care of the creating and shipping for me, which is really convenient. And they open these campaigns. They stay open for 3 weeks, and then they close. And then when they close, everything ships and prints and ships. But they can reopen at any time. There's one open now that I think is open for another like 24 hours. But yeah, it's offered in a bunch of different colors and styles and sizes. And yeah, I've had a lot of fun with these. I didn't know like how much like support I was going to get from people on these, but like my family and friends, they have been amazing. They've supported them. People that I don't know have started buying them because I get like a first name and last initial of who purchases. And I'm just like, I don't even know who this is. I don't know my shirt. It's so exciting. So I'm definitely glad that I did this, and that's like, I still can't believe that people are still buying them. So yeah, if anyone wants to rock a super cool mental health based shirt, they can buy them here and support me and mental health and NAMI.
Love it. I love more people that buy shirts that have some sort of mental health message to it. And then it's just a casual thing people are wearing, and it's out in the world outside of a pandemic, and you can kind of support that. So
it's also super comfy for, pandemic wear.
And you got so many different options. I just want to go back to the comments real quick. You had a couple other people that hopped in to say hello. I believe that's your mom. I just want to let you know she has been watching and heard about your DSM reference. No worries there. Kaylee, thank you. Carla also in here as well. So you had a lot of friends and supporters that checked out the stream here. Thank you once again. I'm going to plug real quick the upcoming episodes I have in the following Sundays. Next Sunday, May 24th, we will have Dan Newberry, who is the head of Lift for the 22, because I had a couple people last week say they would like an episode on PTSD, and he works a lot with veterans. I do the 22 push-up challenge for the 22 veterans that die by suicide each and every day. He is a great guy around that message and supports it regularly. So that is going to be our next episode. The Sunday after that, the last one of the month, I'm going to be talking specifically about anxiety. I have a Dr. Rachel Buhner of the Kentucky Psychologists Association, and my friend Lee McNabb, who is on the air for 93.3 KIOA in Iowa. She will be talking as someone experiencing an anxiety. And then I had a really interesting opportunity present itself recently via a friend that I made on TikTok, of all places. He's from Wisconsin, and he is somebody that experiences schizophrenia. So I will be talking with a guy named Cody Green about his experience with schizophrenia on June 7th at 3:00, and kind of learn how he copes with it and all that sort of stuff. So I have 3 more episodes. If anybody has a topic that they would like discussed more, maybe it's eating disorders, maybe it's OCD, ADD. There's so many things that not even I know about, and I would be happy to talk with people about. And this is one of those things where I'm cool with talking to anyone. So if it's somebody that's familiar with mental health or considers themselves an advocate, and they are, let's say, in New York or California or wherever they happen to be, I'll talk to anyone about anything, and I can have multiple guests too. So thank you so much for being a part of this discussion around therapy and getting more exposure to it, and taking time out of your potentially busy or relaxing Sunday.
Yeah, just, post-graduation's taking it easy. Gonna celebrate with my family later. So I'm so happy that you did this, and extra thrilled that you invited me on here to chat. If anyone that's watching, I love to just talk about mental health and resources and support and all of the above. So if anyone wants to chat about any of that in any way, hit me up. Although being a therapist requires being quiet and a lot of listening, I love to talk. So
yes, outside of the sessions, loves to talk. In the sessions, we'll quietly listen and give feedback.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you so much once again, and thank you to everyone that watched our live stream.